Hi, this is Laura Holyoke, and I have a PowerPoint for you here talking about the assumptions in Schein's books and how they are made, or excuse me, yeah, how they are made and how are they carried out at Pixar. Many of you have asked for this, and my apologies that it's taken me so long. I've been working on and submitting a grant, and I had this PowerPoint put together pretty much last week. For some reason, I didn't save it, so I started over from scratch. This may look familiar to some of you, especially when we go back to thinking of Schein's 3 levels of culture. One of the areas that's still the same here are the deeper cultural assumptions, if you will. We called them basic assumptions before, but we're going to talk about 3 different areas of assumptions that Schein talks about. And the core are the deeper cultural assumptions. So that is, according in an organization, how truth is handled, time, space, human nature, what's appropriate human activity, and then the nature of human relationships. The next ring out are assumptions about managing internal integration. And then the outer layer, the outer ring, is assumptions about external adaptation issues. Here's the good news. For this paper, you choose one of these areas of assumptions and write about what Schein says about them, and then where they are at Pixar to give examples and support them. So I'm going to take a little bit of time to talk to you about each one of these areas. So first are assumptions about external adaptation issues. This is in chapter 9 in Schein's 2017 book. Covers all of these areas: mission, strategy, goals, goals derived from mission, measuring results, correcting mechanisms, remedial and repair strategies, means to achieve goals. So in terms of mission, why is it, how is it, what is our mission in this organization? Something that everybody needs to agree on. It's a shared concept. Our goals are derived from our mission. The mission can be timeless, but goals must have an end point. Are they stuck to? How are they defined? Next are means to achieve goals. So goals can be ambiguous, but not how to achieve them. We should know how we're going to get to those goals. How do we realize them? What sorts of systems and procedures are in place for them? Do we trade on strength of personality? How do we divide our labor? How do we divide tasks in the organization? What's the structure of the organization that supports this? What sorts of control systems do we have in place? Measuring results. So we need consensus on how we measure something and how individuals are evaluated. How do we know if we're achieving our goals? And then what happens when we need to remediate or repair some of our strategies? So we need to come to consensus on how to affect change in an organization. What if something doesn't go as planned? How do we redirect ourselves? Do we have a plan? Do we have a process that we take? I keep saying we because it's in the slide. However, you will be answering these about Pixar. And I think I covered, although I'm sorry I didn't cover them all in order. But that helps with the external adaptation issues. Then we have assumptions about managing internal issues. This can be another section. You can choose to respond to these in your paper. Common language, group boundaries, distributing developing norms of intimacy, friendship, love, rewards, punishments, and explaining the unexplainable. I'm going to go a little bit more into these. So common language, how do we refer to things, to people in this organization, needs to be common and agreed upon. Often the Creators of the organization also create the common language. Group boundaries. How do we know who is in and out of subgroups? How do we know who is in and out of the organization? How do we respect each other's collective group boundaries? How do we know who we are? And within groups' boundaries, you can think about different sorts of movement. So in other words, there can be lateral movement among groups, so from one task to the next task. There can be vertical movement from one rank to the next rank. There can be inclusionary movement. So you may be an outsider and then be brought in as an insider, or vice versa. Distribution, I'm dropping down to the bottom now, of power and status. How do we determine what gets done and who has the right to change direction? How will influence, power, and authority be allocated? So who will grant power? How can power be earned? Or how is power assigned in an organization? In terms of developing rules, how do we deal with power, with different levels of power, and how do we deal with our peers? Allocating rewards and punishment. We need to have a system of sanctions of what desirable behavior is and what happens if, what happens in terms of what sort of sanctions do we have when behavior is deemed unacceptable. Unacceptable in an organization. How about the unexplainable? So what happens when we're facing issues that are completely not in our control? Stuff like weather or natural disasters. How do we explain it? How do we handle it? This is when myths and stories and legends can really help out. Moving on to the next one. These are deeper cultural assumptions. What is truth? How is time dealt with? Space, human nature, appropriate human activity, and nature of human relationships. So most of these, if you remember, often start out as artifacts, move through espouse values and beliefs, and then end up being how people carry out their days and don't ever think about them. So time is handled. I think we can think about going to different cultures and thinking about how time is handled. In some places, if you start an hour late, that is considered to be on time. How is it handled in our organization? Are things handled in terms of monochronic? So is one task handled at a time, or is it polychronic? So are several things done simultaneously? Is planning time linear, fixed, monochronic, or do we have openings and closing times? Where is there developmental time that's limitless in terms of how we are ongoing? Can work be interrupted? Can we come back to things? So how is all of that handled in an organization, as well as many organizations deal with time in terms of annual results, quarterly results, monthly, some are weekly, some are daily, some are by semesters, some are by size and units. Our class is 1 hour, and each class is 1 hour long and has a limit of 25 students. Okay, so that gives you some ideas about time. The nature of space. So space really has symbolic meanings. And when we talk about space, this is where the table at Pixar is a good example. But different space allocations are also thought about here. So in different cultures, we can think about social meaning in space. So a personal distance is how far away, when to talk in a soft voice or a louder voice. What is a social distance that's okay? And what is a public distance? That's okay. Also, in organizations, we can think about symbols of space. So who has what space and how much space do individuals have? Do they have the corner office with lots of windows? Do they have an office that's small and tucked to the back? What does that mean? Size of office may determine rank. Decorating one's office may also be a symbol. And then design of the space also reflects quite a bit if there are upscale furnishings or if it's very old furnishings that are in the office. Nature of human nature. Are people there to only get work done, or are people complex individuals more than their position? So is human nature good? Is it bad? Is that intrinsically learned? Are we born one way or another? Think about theory Y or theory Z. Think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs in terms of human nature and how humans act in relation to their environment. I think also human activity. What's appropriate human activity? Some organizations are more doing organizations. They're focused on let's get things done. We need to focus and be on task. We need to be very pragmatic about everything. Whereas a being organization really kind of more is about letting nature take over and accepting what is, and think about in terms of adapting to what's going on. Nature of human relationships. So are we individuals? Are we collective? Is it reinforced that are we rewarded to do things individually, or are we encouraged to do things as a group? I think. So here's another slide for you to look at in terms of each one of these deeper cultural assumptions. I won't read it to you, but you may take the time to do that. Hopefully that can help you answer some questions. And then for those of you who have Schein 2017, because the assumptions aren't all they're included in part 2. However, here are the page numbers where each of these different deep assumptions can be found. Thank you so much for your time today. Sorry for my start, stop, up and down, but hopefully this will get you the information that you need. Thank you.